Trish has an amazing story. She's got a ministry that she started, I think, from some of the things that she's gone through. But the biggest thing was that she's overcome her fear of technology. She's thriving. And so part of it, she's going to talk to us today about how other people can get started with that. But I think even more intriguing is what she went through in her personal life to get here. So, Chris, I think it's about time that we go ahead and bring on someone that actually was incarcerated and is now made it to the big stage on Dealcast Live.
Hey, fellas. How you going?
Hey, Trish.
Awesome.
That was that pause for U.S. to Australia. It was just sort of like a bit of a pregnant pause there. But welcome and good morning to you. So how are you doing today? Did you have to get up like extra early for us?
Oh, look, I normally get up early. So g'day, fellas. It's a beautiful day. I'm coming to you from tomorrow, and we're still here. So it's Tuesday morning, beautiful day. I'm often up early because I do a lot to do with the US. So I've already walked the dog, picked up his poop, and I've locked him upstairs. So said to my husband, don't let him down because he'll scratch at the door. He's my head of marketing. Yeah. And thanks to Amazon, I've had to create a mute button on my Stream Deck because it's faster because the truck keeps coming and delivering stuff. And of course it sets off the dog. So I was like, quick mute.
Oh gosh.
So in Australia, I mean, you're talking about Amazon and have things lightened up a little bit over there? I know Jim had mentioned we spoke to Annette not too long ago, and things were still pretty locked down at this point. How are things going over there? Are you guys loosening up a little bit, or is it still pretty locked down?
We were loosened up a bit. It was going well, and we're just getting locked down again now. And in a lot of places, we're in the southern states are in a bad way. I think we have something like, 6 deaths in the last little while. It's funny. We go into lockdown, and I did some numbers for you, and you guys are opening up, and Britain's, the UK is having their Freedom Day, and with only 50-something thousand cases for the day, and we get 10, and we're locked in. So, it's very confusing. But lockdown, as tragic as it's been for a lot of people, it was an opportunity that I would have no business, and so that's why you could buy essential things. And so for me, that was my studio, and that's what I put together here. So.
Wow. So those are considered essential items. So like a webcam, a microphone, those are considered essential for your business. So you could.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would not have a business without going online, and I wouldn't have a ministry without, and my ministry's actually expanded because I've been able to reach more people in more countries just by rolling out of bed and coming downstairs than getting on a plane. Mm-hmm. It's awesome.
Incredible. And I think that's amazing, Trish, because I think even for Chris and I, right, we started this show during all of this. Chris and I had met in person a couple times before all this happened, but it probably was several months before we ever got to see each other in person again. And even with that, it was mask, it was social distancing because we do live near each other. But it's interesting because I feel like we've been able to thrive despite all this. You're another example, but then there's a ton of people that unfortunately have not been as fortunate. I do feel for them. But I also, kudos to you for going for it, right? And and overcoming, some of those things. But I don't want to spoil the story. So why don't we get into that? Why don't you tell us how you got to where you are? Because I think it's fascinating.
Yes. Lucky me. So I was working for a fellow in around 2004, 2005, who I didn't know was actually a crook. He ran a mutual fund, and I was working for him, and what he was actually doing was stealing the investors' money, including my own. I didn't know that he was. What it turned out to be was a big Ponzi scheme, which, if you don't know, is where you think you're investing your money and getting some money back, but what you're actually getting back is a little bit of your own money, not actually profit. And of course, it can't sustain itself. It implodes, and he was doing the wrong thing. And I got slammed because the whole thing imploded. There was no money, and I was the one the people were coming to, where's our money, where's our money? I didn't know what was going on. And after a few months of people coming to me, emailing, phoning, turning up at my house, asking, begging, demanding money, I couldn't take it anymore. And I said to him, look, there's some money over here. Can I use that to pay them? He said, yeah, okay, do that. So I did. And as it turns out, that was a breach of the Corporations Act because that money was not meant for that purpose. So effectively, even though I didn't steal anything, I misused funds. Look, if I could go back and change it, I would. I can't. It's not something I'm proud of. I'm deeply ashamed, and I wish that I could change it, and I can't. However, we've all got things in our past that we can't change, but it's what we do with it that matters. And so what ended up happening was everything collapsed. We were put into voluntary liquidation, which is death of 1,000 cuts, where everything gets sold up and you have nothing left. And when we had nothing left, then I was prosecuted. And this all took a few years. And it was 2009, January 2009, I front up to court with a financial issue charge. And you might remember a little thing that happened in 2008 called the global financial crisis.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Muggins comes up to court, and I don't know whether the magistrate was, whether the judge had been an investor or not, but I got the maximum, and I could have got a fine, but I ended up, it was a head sentence of 2.5 years, but because I pled guilty, because I served 8 months in prison, and it wasn't country club prison. There was a few months of that, but I blew that and got kicked back to the general. So yeah, general population with everybody, all the charming guests of Her Majesty, and I was one of them.
Wow. That's just so there was no, I mean, even though at this point you could, sort of plead ignorance, right? I mean, you were like, there's people that are at, you didn't know, it didn't matter. It just was, this was coming down.
Ignorance is no excuse. Yeah.
Right.
Ignorance is no excuse under the law. And look, I knew that it wasn't the exact right thing to do. I just didn't realize how serious it was.
Right.
And I think a lot of business people get into trouble because they're under so much pressure that it's like, just do this temporarily and to tide me over until things come good. And you just can't. And that's why I wrote my first 2 books two of my books are on finance. It's on those warning signals. These are the things you need to watch out for so that you don't end up in that sort of position.
Yeah, a lot of people, when they're in a situation like you, where they're incarcerated, or maybe not even something as bad as that, and they hit a turning point. What was it while you were in for 8 months? At some point, did you just say, "I'm going to do this"? Was it after that you got out? Like what made you write these books and sort of develop this these other things that you're doing, including your ministry and being an author and a speaker? What sort of were what was the, I guess, turning point for you?
Well, I guess it's an interesting timeline because legal stuff takes a long time to culminate. And the offence was in 2005. We went through a couple of years of liquidation, and it was actually then, whenever you go through something tough, the sooner you can look for the lessons, the sooner you can start digging yourself out of that hole of depression and anxiety. Now, I still fought those emotions, those conditions all the way through, but I needed to know how I had missed it. And I was deeply ashamed. And, particularly as a Christian, you have these values that are around being, honest and having integrity, and I had failed.
Sure.
And I thought, how is it that I got to the point? I'm the sort of person, if someone gives me too much change at the shop, that's 5 cents too much. Here you go, take that back.
Sure.
And so I studied it, and I met a fellow at a breakfast. I was still working at that point in sales, and I met a fellow who turned out to be an investigator. And it's funny because I said to him, I wish I'd known you, 18 months ago. And when I told him my story, he said, oh, I know about that fellow. He said, oh my goodness, he just, oh no, he's in with some pretty bad folks. And it was, too late. But he helped me. He said to me, because I said, look, I'm writing this book on, can you give me some tips on what to watch out for in fraud? And he said to me, Trish, can you write your book for women? Because by the time they call me, it's too late. They can't afford me. And so I wrote my first book, and I didn't publish it straight away, Chris. I didn't, I basically just had it on my computer because I didn't know what was happening with my future. So I had this book on my computer. I went through prison where, once again, writing was therapy for me. And I wrote letters and journal entries about my experience, and actually got quite a following there because I would write letters to my husband. And I said to him, look, I'm writing these same letters to a handful of our friends. Could I just write one to you? And could take out the bits that are just for you and the girls, because we have 3 little girls. Well, they were little at the time. And could you type it out as an email and send it to this handful of people to save me? Because we had to write everything in longhand. Back in the day when they used to grow trees and make paper.
Oh yeah, I remember those. Yeah.
Use a pen.
Did you dip the feather in the ink before you wrote on the? Was it a pen like that?
Well, that would be considered a weapon. So
right.
weren't allowed to have those. We didn't quite have crayons. We actually had biros, the pens.
Right.
But, we could write in longhand. And so Justin, my beautiful husband who stood by me, he would laboriously 2-finger type out these letters, and they would go out to our friends and family. And we happened to belong to a wonderful, really big church. Well, not big by American standards. It's, a few thousand people at City Point in Carindale in Brisbane. It's one of the big churches here in Australia. And we were quite well known, much to my embarrassment again. And people would ask how I was. And so he would put them on the list to receive these emails. And these emails went viral because people would share them and on-share them and on-share them. And so I had this following while I was in prison and receiving letters from people to encourage me. And it was just beautiful. And that's one of my books here now that I published after I came home. And then I've also, when I came home, we can explore different aspects of the story, but to answer your question for the timeline, I wrote Dangerous Wealth, What Every Successful Woman Needs to Know to Avoid Being Ripped Off. I'd change the name if I did that again too. But in the book for women, while I was waiting to go to jail, left it on my computer. While I'm in jail, prison actually, because jail and prison are different in America. It was prison, the proper thing. Mm-hmm. I didn't know I was writing a book. That was my letters and private journal entries, and that's called Treasures of Darkness, A Prison Journey. And then when I came home, I wanted to put everything behind me. I didn't want to publish a book because I was so embarrassed. Could I write it under someone else's name? No. And I came to the conclusion that the only way to escape my past was to be upfront about it and say, yep, this is it, and tell my story. And so I very frightened, very, very hesitantly shared with a couple of people. And I said, look, I've got this book. And it was in my town, a lot of the business groups and women's groups invited me to share my story. And I did, and they were so grateful. They were business people saying, my goodness, thank you. These checklists, these questions we should ask, they're so helpful. And so it grew from there. and my confidence grew. And then I was invited to America for a conference of finance people, and I went there, and that turned into a month-long tour. And that actually grew my ministry because there was a lot of churches that wanted to hear about how does a Christian, and more embarrassing, pastor's kid. So, right now, some people are thinking, well, that explains it. We know what they're like. So, and so I minister, and my life is based on Romans 8:28, which says God makes all things work together for our good. It doesn't say it is good. All things are good, but he can make those things work together for good if we see them differently. And so that's how that's grown.
Yeah, it's that mindset where if you know you're not really in control of there's only so much that we are in control. One of them is our attitude and our own mindset, right? Yeah. And so here you are, incarcerated in prison for something that no matter if you were, ignorant of the financial laws or whatever, you still had to do that, had to serve that time. And like you said, we're embarrassed by it. And there's a lot of people that could spiral down into dark places. And so, you knew you were going there, you had prepped yourself, but you really didn't know until you got there what it was like, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so even then there were probably some dark times for you. What helped you kind of keep moving through this, even though, I think everything probably around you was a lot of deep, dark types of things going on.
Yes, there really were. There was a long time before I went to prison and didn't know whether I would go or not. And the time came, I had to make a decision. And some people might laugh at me, that are not believers, but, my prayers were always, I'm not going to go to prison, Lord. I thank you for that miracle. And then I had to get to the point of surrender and just say, okay, God, I'm going to trust you. And I took him with me, So I go in, little Jesus girl goes into prison, and I thought, well, I'm just going to make a difference, I wanted to pray for everything that moved, and these really scary people. It's one of the prison chaplains said to me afterwards. She said, "I prayed for you so much. I was so scared that you were just going to get bashed up because you just had no idea how dangerous some of these people were, and you would just go up to them and say, 'Hi, how you going?'" Clueless, totally clueless. Oh. And it got me in trouble. I decided, I am a faith person. When I do regular business talks, that's for that. But when it's ministry, that's ministry. And when it's a talk like this, I'll just share my heart with what really happened. It's quite funny. But it really was dark. You draw on whatever you've got to draw on, whether you're a Buddhist, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're Jewish, whether you're, you worship animals or forest or whatever. You will go to what works for you, or what you hope does. And this did work for me. Now, some of it didn't, because it sort of challenged some of my assumptions that I thought, I'm a good person, I give, this shouldn't have happened to me. Well, you know what? Life happens to everyone. Everyone gets a turn. So it's no use feeling sorry. Look, one thing I learned is that your biggest enemy that you must be ruthless with is self-pity. The second you start feeling sorry for yourself, look, you can have a little pity part. That I must admit, there have been days where I just wanted to go to bed and not get out again. But you have to recognize that and get them. And this is what I do in the business talks that I do for corporations. When I talk about resilience and mindset, I talk about catching what's going on in here and reframing it and giving people tools to lift out or at least recognize and prevent. So if you know the warning signals of fraud, you can spot them. If you know the warning signals of anxiety and depression and what's going on in your life, you can intercept them. You can. And that's what I learned how to do. Another thing that I realized very quickly was, as a society, we have this us and them mentality. You know, there's people like us in whatever category we happen to be in, and then there's them. You know, in America, it's very politically polarized. If you're with us, if you're not with us, you're against us. And, you know, men and women and all this stuff. And what I realized was when I looked down at what I was wearing, it was the same uniform as what Big Bertha was wearing. You know, we were all there. Everyone had done different things, but I was now them. You know, I came from a respectable middle class, I would say now very privileged. I didn't think I was privileged, but I know how privileged I am now. And there I was among them. And I started to see people, I see beyond this area. And that's what I would encourage people to do is don't look at the label, look past it and see the person. Look behind how they look and actually see them and care about them. And my heart, you know, my heart just turned inside out. And I have a compassion for people that gives me a connection and there's a joy in connecting with someone, even when you're suffering together, when you're sitting down on a concrete floor with caging around you, and you can bring a word of comfort to someone or just hold their hand and say, I'm so sorry you're not getting your kids back. You know, what do you do with that? You know, and I got in trouble a lot because I was clueless. You know, don't walk on the grass. Why not? It's and then of course I would Jesus got me in trouble a lot because I just didn't get it. I just, you know, you're not supposed to comfort someone when they're upset. You're supposed to report it so they can be monitored. Stuff like that. It was like the Twilight Zone for anybody who's old enough to remember that, where they'd have a scenario where the rules just didn't make any sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love how you're obviously a person of faith, and you have, you know, a certain belief system, and those that don't will put you in a box, right? So if they find out that you may be a Christian or whatever, they're going to think, oh, well, this person is going to try to sell me, or they're going to try to convert me, or whatever. But that's not the way you went about it. You were like, you know what? I'm going to show love to someone. I'm going to meet this person where they're at, and no matter what they might think about what a person of faith is, and maybe historically they've had those experiences with people who did it the wrong way. But you said, you know what? We're here. We're all in the same place. We're all humans. We're all at this level, and you're going to meet everyone at that level and show love to those people. And I think that right there is really what it's about, regardless of whether, you know, your belief system, how you were brought up. It's like you start there, then things become better from that point, right?
Yeah, it's about connection. Although you're making me look better than what I was.
Okay. That's my job. Thanks, Trish.
No, look, okay. I have to admit, and when people read my book, they're going to find out, she did try to convert everybody. I thought, right, this was my coping. I got to get everybody saved. I got to get them all saved. I got to pray for everything that moves. And when that didn't work, it worked with a few people. It was like there was a breaking down of me and that religiosity. And this is what I do want to, for those who are believers and who you may think you're being persecuted, but really you're just being a pain in the backside to someone, and you're just copying what anybody would who's being obnoxious. You know, just pull back and care about them. And I've shifted, and you can see it happening as you read the book. And I was quite surprised because last year I did an online challenge to get my courage up where you had to do something online every day live. And I went, I know, I just read from my book. So people go to my YouTube channel, they'll be able to actually see quite a lot of short videos of me reading aloud from my book, sitting in this chair. And I watched that progression change from being, it's kind of like people would rather be right than get it right. And so I would hope that now, the transformation for me was dropping all of that and just caring about someone. And then as the conversation opens up, if it's appropriate, then share and pray for someone. But, your show's it's not a religious show. It's not about spouting that stuff. That's just who I was and am. When the time is right, the people are open to it. So look past it. And when you care about someone, then they might give you the right to speak to them.
I think that's a very powerful message. And I think it's so true. I think, right, sometimes we want to change people and think that, or, even like you said, we think that's what, God wants us to do. And it's like, no, just be good to people. And when they're ready, they're the ones that are going to make the change. It's like with our kids sometimes, like we get so upset with our kids because we want them to do certain things. And at some point, you just have to step back and say, you know what? They're going to make their own decisions. I got to love them regardless of that and hope that they make the right choices because we set a good example for them. So Trish, it's amazing what you went through. And of course, you've got these handcuffs sitting over there on the table. And so we've got to talk about that.
From Amazon. So this is one of my stage props. So when I give a talk, and as I say, if someone's out there watching and you're in the corporate world, don't worry. I'm there. The brief you give me is what I'll share. I'm not going to give an altar call. People can get in touch with me afterwards for that. But yeah, this is the thing. I love these because they're a great illustration that, it's like the strongest prison bars, the things that bind us are in here. And so, that's what I love the visual of because it's like, they're big chunky chains. And, but really they're plastic and they're really light and they're easy to throw off. So, there's a good metaphor for you. But, yeah.
And so you started so once you got through all this and like, even more so last year, you had another challenge. Like now, how do I share my story when I'm in a sense, I guess you could say we're all in a sense, we're in a metaphorical prison of we couldn't leave our house. Now, how am I going to survive?
Exactly. Because you don't have to go to prison to feel trapped. But once again, it is all in how you see things. That your family, you love your family and they love you. They don't deserve, so often people think that, well, I can fall to pieces and have a temper tantrum because they love me. They just have to put up with it. They don't. You need to remember that you love them. My husband stood by me. He could have said, they're not touching my houses because we were actually quite well off. We'd done the thing during another boom where you buy a house, pretty it up, get the equity, get another one and so on. He could have said, see you later, love. You're on your own and I'm taking the kids. Could have. I don't know whether I would have coped as well if that had happened. I don't know. I really wouldn't have. But he stood by me and I fell in love with him all over again because of that. And I was very conscious and deliberate in my decision on how I would treat him through that difficult time. I was not going to take it out on him, even though everything in me wanted to scream and cry. So I'd go for a drive and park in a car park deserted somewhere and scream and cry and pray and pull myself together and come back. I did go to the doctors and get some medication for I was just So I couldn't even think straight. And that helped. Sometimes you need that help. Was when I came home, I thought I'd done very well. And when I came home, it was like I exhaled and fell into pieces and needed to be picked up again. And it's very important to be gentle with yourself and look for the good. And beware of, there's a concept I talk about called your mental ecosystem. Whether you're in lockdown or anywhere else, that an ecosystem is a delicate balance, and you get some poison into that pond, it's going to go through the fish, through everything else, through the bigger fish, and it's going to make everything toxic, right? So your mental ecosystem has things flowing in through your eye gate, your ear gate, goes down into your guts and into your belly, and then comes out of your mouth. It messes with what's going on in your head. You have got to be very, very careful about the things that you feed on, that you allow into that system. If you're constantly watching YouTube videos about conspiracy theories, it's going to mess you up. Like, yes, be informed, but you don't need to be informed about every little thing that's going on. Be very aware of the biases that your demographic has and why you align with it. I'm a Christian, but I don't agree with everything that a conservative government might put out, just because some of their values match mine, because some of the other side matches mine more, particularly because of the experience I've been through. So, very important to keep this going. And when you're in lockdown, feed on healthy things. I would suggest music. Like I will come. This is my garage. You wouldn't know, but this is my garage, and my cars are behind this wall.
It's a pretty good looking garage, Trish.
Yeah,
isn't it great? Well, thanks to lockdown.
Right.
Look, I can. I'll when you're ready, I'll share a bit about the garage. But put music. Elton John had that song about play those sad songs. Don't play the sad songs. Don't play the sad songs.
Sad songs say so much or something.
Yeah. They say top yourself. Go on, it's not worth living. Don't do that. Don't play the stuff, play the songs like, I love to Google. I just put into Google, praise and worship music, or instrumental praise and worship, or inspiring music. Songs that inspire, they're good. And the languaging that we use, that we can turn, and this is what I teach people to do, is to rephrase the sorts of language they do. Just simple things like, oh, I can't afford it. No, that's not in the budget right now, but I could if I wanted to. Because we all can. Anything we really want, we can get. And using words that build people up. And pulling back, you say, oh, they just get on my nerves, It's all in how you look at them. I would often, there's 3 questions that I talk about in my presentations, and it's asking yourself, how else can I see this person? How else can I see the situation? And how else can I be? Who am I being in this? Am I being my best self? Give them some grace, give yourself some grace. And you might be in lockdown, but can you go into your backyard and stand on some grass barefoot? Maybe not in winter. Yeah. When I was in prison, there would be a concrete yard attached to the building, and there'd be a basketball hoop at one end and the phone at this end and some benches you could sit on. And the caging around us was like, I imagine you have the same in America, where it's like that reinforcement for concrete. It's like squares, mesh.
Mm-hmm.
That was the caging. That was what the fencing around us.
Wow.
And I remember sitting on the ground, and there were cracks in the concrete, and there were some little bits of grass growing through, just a few sparse sort of blades of grass. And I would sit down and I would stroke it. So, wow. And I would just give myself to that moment of the beauty and the courage and the persistence of this grass that had cracked through concrete. Finding little things that you can focus on that give you pleasure and that bring hope. Call me corny, but it feeds my soul.
I think it's I think that's if you could just have a little of that, because I think you just to go back to the mental ecosystem that you're talking about, I'm probably aging myself right now, Trish, and I know you're a lot younger than I am, but now things are endless. You can thumb scroll through anything, whether it's YouTube or Instagram or whatever, and it's endless. The algorithm will continue to feed and feed and feed you until you pass out from hunger or sleep or whatever is going to overtake you. And you have to be aware and intentional and say, listen, I'm only going to give myself, whether it's any type of the millions of television subscription services that you can buy that will continue to feed your, it's okay to unplug your brain for a little bit and that's healthy to kind of take a little bit of a fun. But if you're going into these places that aren't good for you and you just let it, before you know it, it can just kind of creep in the back door. And it's like, how many hours have I been, like in the case you were talking about, watching these conspiracy theory things or whatever, and you're going to eventually, it's going to affect you in some way. And so it's how do you work with people to maybe set some stops for themselves to be able to get themselves back on track and get away from that endless thumb scroll?
Well, you just said it. You said they need to set some stops. That you might set an alarm on your phone if you need to, but it's more so much about not even stop it, have a time limit, but find something better. So you're not just starving yourself of that habit of scrolling. Actually find something else to do. I remember when people used to do gardening. There are hobbies that you can do that don't involve a screen, and they're good for you. There's knitting. There's craft. Also, well, if you want to be online, have a live stream like we have, because I know you wanted to ask me about my studio and the equipment, because we did say studio on a budget, and for me it was a budget because it's your business when you're shifting to online, and our other business that my husband did, which was selling solar panels, that was affected. So we had to be innovative and do things on a budget. But you find other things to do, and in fact, here's a romance tip for people, and I've said this to my daughters. I said, you might find that opposites attract, and if they do, because often it's the case, and my husband and I are very different. So our things that we do in common, the overlap of the Venn diagram is quite slim. So what you want to do together while you're courting is, there's an old-fashioned word for you.
Courting. I like that.
But and there's so many resources online you can look up for activities that you may have no clue that you would actually enjoy. Oh, no, I wouldn't like going fishing, or I wouldn't like rock climbing, or I wouldn't like that. But you don't know till you try it. So expand your circle of things to do so that you can do them together. So your little Venn diagram has a bigger overlap. And that actually makes you a more interesting person, so that if you do want to do something online, you're not boring. You're not just banging on about one thing and being obnoxious just online. Have something interesting to talk about. And then when I talk to my guests on my show on Trish TV, I can actually ask them about what they're doing and draw them out, just like you are with me. People are much more interesting than they think they are. Well,
very true. So Trish, because I know you're wanting to talk about it. So what was the process that you went through to build your studio? Because you're not just the one look that we're seeing right now. You realized that you needed to develop different looks for different things.
Yes. Well, look, I did invest in a couple of courses and to do with, how to do video. But really, the main thing is you want to have a good webcam. So I've got a Logitech 922. I think that's what it's called. You have one of those. What I have behind me, this blue is curtain material.
It looks good.
Pinned
It
up
does.
with thumbtacks. You can see one of the thumbtacks. See that dot right there just above the plant?
Mm-hmm.
That's a thumbtack in my wall. And so I brought the chair from upstairs, and behind the chair is a little side table with a light on it, throwing light up onto the blue. This is my grandmother's table that I have, and a little plastic plant from the store. What else? Oh, and the decorations you see on this side, I just flogged them off my daughter's room. I just pinched them from her. And I put some furnishings around. You want to have some furnishings, to absorb the sound. And my favourite store was the hardware store. So, where I'd get bits of wood for my. Over this side, I'll show you is my stand-up studio. Shall I move the camera and show everybody now?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. If you'd like to.
See. So over here is my stand-up area. So that big piece of blue is the same material. And I went to a shop called Bunnings, which is it's a hardware store, and I got them to cut the strips of wood for me, and I brought them home, and I just used a staple gun. You can see the bottom of the material. It looks like a staple gun's attacked it. So that's what it did. And that's my stand. Now, I did buy quite a few things that it turns out I didn't need. And there's the spaghetti of cords all down there. But those two silver tables from Amazon is what I use. I've got, and the orange box-like thing under the light, that's actually an empty shoebox where I perched my other laptop. And the light is what's called a cowboy light or a soft box. I prefer those. And I have one behind me here, but it's a bit bright if I show you. See, look, there you are.
Right.
And I have these cords. Now I have a tripod there with a second camera on. Tell you what else I bought from Amazon were a couple of Apple 7s.
Okay.
So that I could use them as cameras. So sometimes, as you can see, I've got the whiteboard just here. So I can do a digital whiteboard on the screen, but sometimes it's nice to get some thick pens and paper. And so I have this tripod here, just there, in the middle, pointing at the whiteboard, so I can stand there and draw, or I can go further over to the third tripod. And you get the tripod on Amazon. So, I get my tripod on Amazon, and I can switch between cameras using my
Stream Deck.
I love this. And as I said, just the other day when the dog barked, I was on a Zoom and I thought, where's my mouse? Grab the mouse. Oh, where's the microphone picture of the button? Oh, I've got to click that. Oh, I've got to click it. So there's like 3 steps to silence my dog. And so I set up a button to mute my microphone. And as soon as he looked like he was going, and I went bang, and they couldn't hear him. So
that's so smart. And a lot of people, they think when they see, a YouTube channel like yours or a live stream like this or a lot of things, and they see, all of this stuff that is visible to them. You've got I've got these plaques and guitars hanging behind me. You've got all of that nice stuff that but I turn this camera like 1 foot over here and it's a horror show over here. I'm not, it's like, I'm afraid to even look over there, let alone step. But it's not, none of that stuff that you mentioned was expensive.
No.
And I think a lot of people don't realize, and just an iPhone has a great camera in it. And there's a few things that you can do that you can use for that. And it can be a webcam. If the webcam is in HD, and like you said, the Logitech 922X that you've got, these are things that you can, within a budget, if you got a tight budget and you're like, you know what, I can only spend, X amount, you can find things that work relatively well. And then when you become like, the superstar that Trish Jenkins is, then you could, then the money, then you can say, okay, now I want to level up and get a mirrorless camera or some other switcher or whatever.
You mean like, you mean like the Stream Deck XL?
Oh,
yes.
Look at that.
There you go. She's
Somebody's
moving
already
up.
leveling up.
That I have set up because I want more buttons.
That's okay. I have one and Chris does too. In fact, I waited because I'm like, I didn't want to have the smaller button. It's like, gosh, I wish I had the one with more buttons. So I went with the more buttons right away.
Very good. And remember, bear in mind, when I said the iPhone, it was an iPhone 7 last year.
Right.
I don't want a better camera than that. You don't need to be seeing too much detail here. The older I
feel
get,
the same way. Yeah.
The older I get, the older the camera I want. Just saying.
Well, if it makes you feel any better too, Trish, my brick wall behind me is held up by pins as well. So it's not a real
I thought it might have been virtual. Yeah, I see people with the virtual.
It's vinyl.
But look, all you need is a little space. You don't need to have a stand-up area. You can just put your camera on a tripod and move it up and stand up, which is what I want to. And these soft boxes are beautiful lights, and they're not expensive.
Mm-hmm.
These ring lights, sometimes ring lights can be annoying, especially if you wear glasses. So, you want to have soft, good, I have great lighting here, and it wasn't expensive. So you can.
And are those soft boxes? Are those LED lights so it doesn't get too hot?
Yes. Yep, they're like a spiral inside them, but they're the original lights. I haven't had to replace them, and I had them. I didn't buy them last year. I had them when I used to do photography a long time ago, and I just pulled them out of the storage and set them up. But tripods are cheap now. I've got a really expensive tripod from when I used to do photography, and when I wanted another one, I just went online. And you can find them, just make sure you get the size right because you want a tall one. And you want to get the little clamps. They're only about $1. Little clamps that hold your camera in place on top of the tripod. You get the tripod. It has a little plate. Then you have a clamp that clamps around your phone. They're purpose-building things for phones. And so, and look, I've got one of these, but I don't even use it. A little ring light, right? Yeah. So, and it's got a light on it. But I use it sometimes. Like if it's getting late in the afternoon and I'm feeling like I look a little haggy, then I'll put a bit of lighting, throw up and freshen up a little bit.
So it's like when Jim and I were first going live on Amazon, we found out that we could only go live at 720p and not 1080p or 4K. And there was a lot of people complaining. And then Jim and I were like, I think we're okay with it because, they're going to see less wrinkles. And like, who's going to really be able to tell the difference anyway? But Trish, our show is really about what we're talking about. And that is, a lot of people will think, inevitably in the businesses that Jim and I have, and likely yours as well, is that, the conversation will end up talking about gear. And people, like, the eyes glaze over when you start, putting out numbers and start talking about different things and suggestions and all of that. But, what if you were, what would you say to someone who's watching the show right now that's maybe thinking about going live and they're thinking about, a particular show that they've got or a particular message that they have to say or a story that they want to tell the world, but maybe they've got some mind junk going on, and it might be tech, or it might just be whether or not they think that their show is good enough as compared to others. What would you say to someone that's watching or listening to the show?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked me that because I've been there and I can help. So I started off when I was terrified. I just did little Facebook live streams to friends, that in a safe place, and maybe even just in a little group, just practicing just in the little group. And I did buy some, do some courses to help me improve and get my set and so on. But you know what? And I was trying to think of the lady who wrote for the name of the book, but there's a lady who wrote a book called Everything is Figure Outable. And I just love that. Everything is figure outable, and you don't have to know it all in one day. And here's some wisdom that my dad gave me. And he said to me, Trish, when all else fails, read the instructions. So,
I think that message was for guys even more so, because guys are always famous for not reading the instructions.
Right.
I would get software. How many pieces of software have you bought and you haven't wanted to bother going through? They will have 100. Start here with this little short video. Click here, click there. This is how you just allocate some time and step through. Now, I have my stand-up studio and this studio. This morning, I had a glitch. I'm using some new software, which is a virtual, what is it? A banana something. Anyway, it's you put multiple sounds in and they all come out the one area. Well, when I went to test it this morning, no sound coming out. I'm like, I'm getting interviewed. Hang on. Okay, everything is figure outable. And so I actually, because I have two of everything, and you don't have to have two, but it is good to have some spares, I switched out the laptops and plugged everything back in again. So, is anybody going to die if you get it wrong? Well, if they are, then yeah, maybe you should stress out. But if they're not, if you fluff it, you can delete it. You can just go back and delete it. You're having a go. I do want to suggest, if you're going to deliver a message, check what's behind you. We don't want to see your undies on the doorknob behind you, really. Put your pants on if you're going to be standing up. Keep it simple and clean. You want lighting. You do want clear sound. I use a little Rode. Where are we here? Hang on, pull it out a bit. I might have to take this off. There's my little Rode microphone. And I've got some speakers behind, but you don't even need that. You can just use your on-camera stuff as long as people can hear you. But yeah, practice. You can. And I used to think I was not good at technology, and then I stopped and went, hang on a Trish, at what point we don't need to see ourselves as though we're still in the 4th grade when we're in the 7th grade. But often because we're learning, we think, oh yeah, I'm still learning, I'm still not good at it. But you know what? You turn around and look at what you have done. You can do it. It's all in here. And don't say I'm not good at technology. A 15-year-old, you say, or a 12-year-old, we don't expect them to be able to drive a car, but when the time comes, they're not 20 driving around saying, oh, I'm not a good driver. They've learned.
Yeah,
so,
everything is figure outable. I love that. I'm totally going to steal that, Trish.
Well,
but you're right.
Mine.
I think
it's I'd have to.
Oh, it's the author that said that. But it's so true, because people think when they see something that they can get that immediately, but they don't know that whoever they're watching had developed whatever talent or whatever technology or whatever knowledge they had. It took time for them to do that, and it's okay for you to get some knowledge. And there is a bit of a fast track, because you can go to YouTube University and watch a few things and know enough to be dangerous and get going. But you're not going to immediately be knocking out the world on your first live stream. But the good news is your second live stream is going to be better.
It is,
and your
it's
third
great.
one's
And then
going to
your
be better
fifth
than
one will
that.
be. Your fifth one, you'll bomb out again and go, what the heck went wrong? And so you just go back and do it again. And I looked up that author. It is Marie Forleo, because I want to make sure I credit that. Marie Forleo. And also, find a 20-year-old kid to help you. My daughters are now, when I went to prison, my daughters were 10 and the twin girls were 7, Felicity and Olivia and Chelsea. And today the twins are 19. So I have access to all these young people. And can you help me? Yeah, I can help you, Mrs. Jenkins. Yeah, okay. So, it's and they want to. they want to, and they love it. I'm still struggling with Instagram because I'm not very consistent. I have these, horizontal video interviews in That's what I want to do. I want to have an Amazon channel. Apparently I don't have enough subscribers yet, so maybe you could ask people to subscribe to my YouTube channel to help me out.
Let's do it. Give us the YouTube channel. Is it Trish Jenkins?
Yep, that's it. It's just youtube.com/Trish Jenkins. That's the URL. Look me
Beautiful.
up there and, like, subscribe. And you know what? You can even sit down and watch me read my book to you, and you'll get some of the background of what was happening at the time. But if not, yep, that's right. I actually have two. I've got one that's the ministry one as well, but you can find that as well. But
and you have a .live now too, right?
I do. I haven't done anything with it yet, but I'm not quite sure what to do with it yet. But when I saw you guys talking about it, I got my trishjenkins.live. And
when we get you live on Amazon,
that's what I want to do.
That's what we'll trishjenkins.live. So everybody can go there now and just bookmark it. So when she does go live on Amazon, you're already going to have a gazillion followers. How's that?
Oh, that'll be so good. I really want to do that because I want to be able to support other people. I want to do interviews with people who might have they might be authors, and then people can just click and buy their book. So I'm in groups with other authors. So and if anyone out there is with either a church or another organisation where you want a motivational speaker who can really help equip people get out of the funk that they might be in with an interesting story, pick me. I'm very entertaining.
There's your gal. That's right. Well, you've made some fans today. We've got some. The chat has been lively. I know Scott Ayers from Live Streams Labs has chimed in a number of times and really is wanting to have you on his show. And so he's mentioned here in the chat he's a very strong Reformed evangelical Christian, but so relates to what you're saying to people, especially in 2021, is more about lifestyle than shoving stuff down people's throats.
It is.
So, yeah.
It is. Oh, can I push the friendship and do one thing to there's one thing that I've learned to do that is just amazing in lockdown that makes people feel good. Okay. So a friend of mine is a woman on her own. She has 2 cats and she was in lockdown. She had to work from home. She had nobody. So we had lunch. When I encourage people, have virtual lunches with people. And I said, I want to hug you. And I can't. She said, I know. I wish I could hug you. Now, don't worry. I'm not laying hands on people, but I do when I do this. But this is what you can do. You want to connect. If you're lonely and on your own out there and you're feeling despair, and you might be someone out there who's thinking, I just want to end it all or whatever. Sorry to bring a downer in, but it's going to end up good. If you put your arms around yourself, I'm going to reach. Is this okay to do? Is this too weird? Or is this just say it's because she's Australian? It's weird.
It's fine.
No, it's not weird.
Good. This is what I do with people sometimes.
Are we supposed to be doing it too, Trish?
Would you like to? Do you want to hug? I know it's sort of corny, but she's
no.
It's all right. I'm not a fella, so you don't have to feel uncomfortable. So
it feels pretty good.
It feels good. Now, just close your eyes. I am reaching through the screen, through the virtual world, and connecting overseas, over the waters. What you're feeling now are my arms, my hands, and that warmth is from me. You matter. I care about you. And you're loved and you are valuable. And just feel my hug. Squeeze. Feel that oxytocin release. And when you're ready, just release. That's how I hug people online. And you can really feel it.
Right. Yeah, that's much better, I think, than any other hug I've gotten virtually.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about wandering hands or inappropriateness or anything like that.
Right.
Stop that.
Exactly. Don't have to wear a mask to get that hug.
You don't. No, I just think there might be 1 or 2 people on there that that needed that. So everybody had to
awesome.
do
it. That's awesome.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you for being so good to me.
It's been a pleasure for us as well, Trish. Thank you so much for spending time with us, and I hope your story has helped someone else. I know that I can't speak for Jim, but I will go ahead and say that your story has definitely touched us. And for those who are still watching and listening, make sure you pick up Trish's book, Treasures of Darkness, but she's also got Weapons of Cash Destruction, which apparently is the male version of Dangerous Wealth. As well.
Even the branding colors, right? She was all over that, right?
Look at that.
Branded it right.
How to avoid getting ripped off in finance and relationships. So
all I see in the middle one is the word cash and fire. And so like that's a great marketing cover for sure.
I could use that fire right now to get rid of that wasp nest. But.
Right. Awesome. Good stuff. Well, thanks again, Trish. And Jim, you want to sign us off?
Yeah, Trish, thanks again for joining us. And folks, we don't have an exact date on our next show, but it will be soon. Make sure you follow us at dealcasters.live, and that way you'll know when we go live. And Trish, once again, thank you. Chris, great to be back on set. It's been a week, right? But we did get to see each other in real life. That was a lot of fun. We'll have to do that again soon as well. And hope that our friends from Australia can soon leave the country to visit other places. So.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm so looking forward to it. So if anyone wants to get in touch with me, they can. How do you get them in touch with me?
However you would like them to get in touch with you.
So my email is just my name, trish@trishjenkins.com.au. So the AU for Australia, but or just contact these guys and they'll put you in touch. But yeah, happy to be in touch and like my page, my subscribe.
That's right.
Yes, definitely head to the YouTube channel. And
you can message me through that too, I think.
Did I get that right with the email address?
.com.au. Trish@trishjenkins.com.au.
Lots of dots there.
Yeah.
Some extra dots.
Yeah, I couldn't get the .com because it was someone else in America. trishjenkins.com.au. Or the live streaming. So look, thanks so much, fellas. It was great fun showing off my
and you still have the whole rest of your day ahead of you because it's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday morning, 8:45. So this has been the highlight of my day so far. It's all downhill from here. No, it's motivating me fresh. This is great.
Awesome. Thanks again,
Trish. All right, everyone. As always, don't fear the gear.
Thanks for listening to Dealcasters. Congratulations. You've taken another step forward in your content creation journey. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe or follow button here in your favorite podcast player so you can be reminded every time we drop an episode.
We love hearing from our listeners and viewers. And if you're wanting to watch our shows live on Amazon, feel free to follow Dealcasters Live as well at dealcasters.live. Follow us on Twitter or subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we also included added content that you cannot find anywhere else.
If you have questions about this episode or have something you want us to review, you can also email us at dealcasters@dealcasters.live. Thanks again for listening, and you know the deal. Don't fear the gear.